It is March 6th, currently about 9:48 a.m. My water broke 2 hours before at 37 weeks and 4 days. I didn't expect this at all, and we actually had plans for breakfast, so we didn't even sleep properly. But they checked me in and they said that I can't go back home. I can go out and eat, but they're gonna start inducing labor just because our water broke. And Kazi's here with me. Nervous. Let's see how it goes.
It's 11:57. We are in our room where we are gonna deliver. Fozia is changing into a gown for the doctors, and her water broke at 7:45, and we got ready. We came to the hospital around 8:50, and then the doctors did some tests and they said she has to deliver today. So we are in our room. That's our bed. I'm pretty sure that's the baby monitor, baby bed. And that's my bed. I hope you guys can see the view. So there you go. And there we got the chart, which gets updated every few hours by the nurses and doctors depending on what's happening.
They admitted me in the room. I think Kazi gave you guys a tour of how the room looks like. And they put me on oxytocin. So this is a synthetic hormone which is gonna induce labor. And so far I'm having very mild contractions, but this is supposed to increase the contractions, and in a few hours things are gonna get way too real. So I'm just resting over here, try to take a nap since I didn't sleep at all last night, and the water broke unexpectedly. Never thought that I was gonna deliver today, but fingers crossed, inshallah, hoping for a safe delivery.
12:21 now, and Fozia's 7 centimeter dilated at the moment. The doctor's gonna check after 2 hours or so to see how does she progress, but she's been progressing every 2-3 hours that the doctor did the cervical check, and the baby is doing well so far. And I'll show some machines over here. That's the baby's heart rate. That's the chart. The one on the top is baby's heart rate. At the bottom you can see the contraction. That's Fozia resting. And don't worry, she's the one who told me to do this, so it's not like I wanted to do this, so that's all. We will see how it goes after 2 hours and update.
That was the raw footage of the birth vlog which you guys just saw, and it was not complete because guess who recorded the whole vlog? That's right, Kazi had one job, you guys, to do a proper birth vlog, and he was really confident. He told me that he could do it, but when we came back home and checked out the clips, some of them were in time lapse and some of them were not complete. So here I am sitting down to speak about my birth experience. And since on Instagram you guys opted for the long version, I've decided to include the entire details in this video. So let's get started. As you guys saw in the vlog that my water did break at 7:45 a.m. The night before, I haven't slept, and towards the end of the pregnancy I would be sleeping during the days and I would be awake during nights, and Kazi was off the next day, so we stayed up late until about 4 a.m. and then we went to bed and I was still awake. At 7:45 I got out of bed to get ready for a brunch date that we had planned with our friends, and as soon as I got out of bed I could feel a huge gush, and I knew right then that my water broke and there was spill all over the floor, and I just screamed out Kazi's name and he understood that the water broke and it was go time. So we went to the hospital and we knew that the baby would be coming either today or the next day, and we only had about 80% of our hospital bag packed, but we thought that we might be able to come back home because that's what we knew, that if our water breaks we can come back home and labor at home for 12 hours. So we still took our hospital bag with the 80% things packed in case if we couldn't come back home. And then we went to the hospital at about 9 a.m. and they did some tests. They did check and saw that that was the amniotic fluid which was broken. And previously on Instagram I did mention that I did do a GBS test. So this is a strep B test which pregnant women do during week 35 to week 37 to know if they have the certain bacteria present inside them. It's harmless to the mother, but it can sometimes cause harm to the baby. So if you are positive on strep B, then they start you on antibiotics. You will have antibiotics throughout your delivery until the baby is delivered. So it turns out that I was strep B positive, and because of that reason they told me that I couldn't go home, rather I have to be admitted now and I have to be induced just because my water broke and the contractions are not that near to each other, and I also need to get my first dose of antibiotics. So they told me that I have to stay in the hospital and get induced. I let them know that I haven't had breakfast and I just woke up and I haven't had anything, so they gave me an hour. They first put me on IV antibiotics, the first dose, and then once that was completed they told me, okay, you can go downstairs to our cafeteria and you can have food, or you can even go somewhere outside, but you need to come back within the next hour. So we went to the cafeteria, we had breakfast. I was obviously very tensed, very nervous, and I wasn't sure what to really expect, and everything happened so suddenly. I never thought I would be going into labor in 37 weeks. I mean, even if you saw my video, just the last videos where I did mention that I won't be going before 40 or 41 weeks, and that's what most new moms go into. So this was like a huge shock for me that my water broke at 37 weeks. I had breakfast. There wasn't much option in the cafeteria, but I had like a healthy balance of fruit and bread and cheese. And then we came back to the room around 12 and changed into my gown, and they've decided to induce me with oxytocin. So that's the synthetic hormone which induces labor, and they're gonna slowly increase the units as the time goes by to make sure that the contractions are nearer to each other. So from 12:30 to 4:30 I was progressing properly. I was not feeling that bad, but I could feel that the contractions were getting stronger. They also did let me know that once they did induce me with oxytocin, I am not allowed to have any more solids. I can have juice or soup, anything liquid, but I'm not allowed to have any solids. And if I opted for epidural, then I will only be allowed to have water and nothing else. So my friend, as soon as she heard that, I went into labor and we couldn't meet them for brunch, she came to the hospital to deliver the soup. Since it was COVID time, she wasn't allowed in the room, so Kazi went downstairs to grab the soup for me. And so I had the soup while I was in labor. I didn't have anything solids after 11 a.m., but I only had soup during the time I was having oxytocin for the first 4 hours. Around 4:30, I felt like the contractions are getting worse, and I decided to opt for an epidural. I did know from our classes before that if you wanted to get an epidural, you have to get it as soon as, instead of waiting it for too long, just because you need to be still when they induce the epidural into the space of your spinal cord. And if you are in too much of contractions, or if you have too much of labor pain, you might not be able to be still, and then the injection can be placed in a wrong place, and that can cause more problems, and the epidural might not work, and it can get even worse. So I've decided around 4:30 that my pain was getting pretty intense and I wanted to opt for an epidural. The nurse told me that the doctor needs to do a cervical check before they induce the epidural in me, just to see how many centimeters I am dilated. And I hate cervical checks, you guys. It's one of the things which I have stayed far away from during pregnancy, and I did not want to get a cervical check done throughout the entire pregnancy, so I didn't want to get it done. But the doctors were really nice with me, and they said that we do have to get it done with you, and we can't really induce you the epidural unless we get this done. So I opted for gas and air, or anti-nox, which is the laughing gas, which you can put on your nose and breathe the gas in when the cervical check was being done. And I swear the cervical check was one of the most painful things I've had to go through, because it was not fun. After the doctor checked me, and the doctor came about an hour later because she was in another operation room doing a C-section, so I had to wait till 5:30 to get checked, and the pain at that time was getting even worse. And then she checked me and she saw that I was 3 centimeter dilated and 50% effaced. So she said that okay, like the patient can opt for an epidural. Then they called the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist was with somebody else at that time, because that person was going into an emergency C-section. So I had to wait another half an hour to get the epidural. So it took me about an hour and a half from the time I wanted it to the time I got it. At 6 p.m. the anesthesiologist came into the room. The nurse told me that it was only going to be a sting and a burn, and I was having contractions at that time, so the nurse had to hold me still to make sure that the epidural was put into place properly. I swear it hurt so much. The epidural was one of the most painful things I have had to face, and even Kazi was seeing the whole procedure, so he did tell me later that he did freak out when they were putting the injection in my spinal cord. I did not just feel a sting and a burn, it was more than a sting and a burn. That's all I'm gonna say, but it did hurt, and the nurse held me like really tightly and made sure that I didn't move. Once the epidural was placed, I felt something really cold gush down my spinal cord, so that's when the epidural started working. And alhamdulillah, it didn't go wrong. It started working instantly, so I could start feeling relaxed and I couldn't feel the contractions anymore. So everything went numb from my hip and below. I could still feel some sensation in my legs, and I kept moving my legs throughout my labor to make sure that I could keep them mobile, especially when I was about to deliver. So I wanted to keep them mobile, so I kept moving my legs and made sure that I didn't have them numb, and they were functioning at the time I needed them. So I was supposed to go to sleep after epidural, and that's what I thought, that the epidural will help me relax, but I was too awake. The anticipation was really too much for me, and it kept me wide awake. I couldn't go to sleep, so I was just laboring quietly and just waiting to make sure that my cervix was more than 3 centimeter dilated. It goes to all the way to 10. That's when you can deliver. Around 7 p.m. there was a change in nurses. So nurses in Canada, they do 12-hour shifts, and there was a second set of nurses who came in, and they were one of the best nurses that I've ever had. I had 2 nurses, Logan and Bailey, and they were really fantastic with me. They were very patient and they were very nice. They kept checking on me, especially Logan. She was my main nurse. And after that, around 10:30 p.m., I started shivering a lot. All of a sudden, they decided that they are gonna do a cervical check on me since it's been about 4 hours since I got the epidural. Around 10:30, 11ish, they did another cervical check. The doctor checked and she saw that I was 6 centimeter in, but there seemed to be a problem. So they were not telling me what the problem was, so they decided to call the OB on call. So there is a doctor who's delivering, but then there is an OB who is also there present, and she will only do C-sections or emergency deliveries if needed, but she's like in the highest position where all the decisions come from her during that time. So they called the OB and the OB came and she checked me and she saw that I was 6 centimeter dilated, but since my water broke at 7:45 a.m., my amniotic fluid was less. So this caused a decrease in fetal heart rate. So my baby Fawaz's heart rate was going down, and they were saying that if the heart rate doesn't go back up, then they will have to do an emergency C-section. And this freaked me out really bad because I have been preparing for normal delivery since day one, and under all the drugs and so many stress going on, I literally started crying, and I told the OB that I don't want to do the C-section, and she suggested that then they can try something else called IV amniotic fusion, where they will introduce fluid externally through my vein and see if the baby can react to that and the baby's heart rate goes back up. And she told me that she'll give me 1 hour before it's a mandatory C-section, so I have the next hour and I have to see if my baby will react to the amniotic fusion, and if he does, then I can still labor and continue laboring and there won't be any problem. So at 11 they introduced the next set of IV amniotic fusion, and at 12 the OB comes and she checks me and she says that I am already 8 centimeter dilated, which was a really good thing. And he also reacted to the amniotic fusion, so the heart rate's back up, and they have decided that emergency C-section is not needed and I can continue laboring. So from that time onwards, I became more determined. So I was in the transition phase and I really felt a huge sense of power inside me. I kept thinking that I could do it, and I have started preparing myself mentally that it's gonna be go time in a few minutes to an hour, and I was getting mentally to push. I told my nurse Logan that I wanted a popsicle, so they had free popsicles for patients, and I told her that I want to get a popsicle since I can't really have anything for dinner or any food and I don't really have that much energy, so I wanted a popsicle to gain some energy for getting ready to push. And then I had the popsicle around 1 a.m. They saw that I was 10 centimeter dilated and they told me that okay, right now you are all the way ready, the baby is down, the baby is head down and 100% effaced, so you can push now. But I've decided that I didn't want to push at 1 a.m. So there's something called laboring down. Laboring down means that when you reach 10 centimeters, if you can stop your urge to push, then the baby goes further down and further down to your cervix. When you do push, the tearing is minimal. So I've read about that and I've been taught about laboring down in our classes. So I have decided that I wanted to labor down and wait at least 45 minutes to an hour. And the nurses and the doctors, they were all very impressed and shocked that, I've decided to labor down, because it's really hard to hold the urge when you want to push. So I was telling them that I want to hold the urge to push and make sure that he goes even lower so that I can push him out easily. and they were very impressed with me, so they gave me about an hour. They told me that I could call them whenever I wanted from 1 a.m., but I've decided that I would wait about an hour. So around 2 a.m. I called the nurses and the doctors in my room, and I let them know that I was ready to push. So we practiced some practice pushes. I pushed in the side lying position, and then later during the end I pushed in the back position. So we started pushing from 2:04 a.m. and Alhamdulillah, Fawaz came to the world at 2:47 a.m. It only took me about 43 minutes, and everybody was super impressed with me being a first-time mom. And there were two other moms who were delivering with me, but they were not first-time moms, and they took longer to push. So the nurses were bragging about me, like my nurse was bragging about me to all her other patients that, you know, I did so well. And I think I really did well because the whole staff was super supportive. It was a very beautiful and a positive delivery experience for me. Kazi was there, he held my legs, and then he even cut the cord when Fawaz was born. And we have always wanted to do all the sunnahs of birth. In our religion, when the baby is born, one of the sunnahs is to read the azan, which is the call to prayer, in the baby's ears. So right after Fawaz was born, I said salam to my baby, and he was kept on my chest. And when I said salam to Fawaz, he literally looked up, like he literally lifted his head and looked up to me, and that was so special for me. And then Kazi recited the azan in his ears, which was also very, very emotional and a beautiful moment for both of us. It was really perfect. This whole experience, just experiencing it with Kazi and having such a beautiful delivery experience was perfect for me, and it did make up for not having any family around. One of the things which really helped me have a positive birth experience is visualizing. I did keep on visualizing about a specific thing, and one of the things I kept visualizing about was my hike to Little Lougheed. I'm gonna link it on the screen if you haven't watched the video yet, but that was one of the hardest hikes, the hardest hike I've ever done. And I kept on visualizing myself climbing that mountain, and the view up on top was the end goal. So the view up on top was Fawaz being born and being with me. That was the end goal. So I kept visualizing me climbing that mountain. I've also listened to the Quran, so that helped me relax. I listened to Surah Maryam. So this surah is all about labor and delivery, and it's about the time when Maryam alayhi salam was pregnant. So I've listened to that surah, and then I have read the 94th surah of the Quran, which is also very helpful for delivery. And all these things really helped me focus and really get me in the zone to deliver my baby. It was really easy for me, and I've never thought in my entire life that it would be this easy for me. And epidural did help me, you guys. So if I had to choose again, I think I would still opt for the epidural, because the epidural did help me labor properly, and I only had a very minimal tear. So they did stitch me up, and it wasn't that bad. I could start walking a few hours later, and the stitch down there healed within the 3 weeks of postpartum. So that was really good, and I'm really thankful that I did not have a major tear, second, third, or fourth degree tear. It was just a minor first degree tear, and it was a really positive birth experience. So I want to thank you all for sending me all the lovely messages, the positive messages during my pregnancy, and letting me know that you guys are keeping me in your prayers. Thank you so much for your messages, and thank you for always supporting me. Right now, since I do have the baby with me, I am not being able to make much videos, but I promise you guys, as soon as we're settled into the whole baby schedule, I'll be posting more often. That's all for today. So if you have liked my video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you're new. I hope to see you guys in my next video real soon. Till then, Bye.